Hi, Ryan. How are
Hey, what's
you?
going on, Christine? Happy to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, happy to be here. I'm glad you're able to come on. So, yeah, there's a lot to talk about with podcasting. Seems like you do a lot of work there. And then, why don't you introduce yourself first? Who are you? I know we met on, I think, Instagram. Oh no, we met on LinkedIn. You're on Instagram. So, yeah, introduce yourself a little bit more. Like who's Ryan, and then how did you get into podcasting?
So my name is Ryan Sullivan. Ryan R. Sullivan is what I go by, just because there's 100 million Ryan Sullivans out there. You probably know a few of them if you're watching this right now and you're from the U.S. especially. But
Uh,
yeah, but I also go by Sully Bop. That's my logo right there. It's this brand called Sully Bop, which I'm a rapper and a producer. So I've been doing that for 4 or 5 years now. I release music under that name, Sully Bop. Music videos, live performances, all that. I'm also a wedding DJ. And so that's kind of my music side. But then a few years ago, I had some friends, talk to me, and yeah, I had been into podcasting, not podcasting myself, but just watching podcasts. And some of my
mm,
friends were, they said to me, "Hey, we might want to, we would listen to you if you started a podcast." And it was just in my brain. You know how it is with, it's in your mind for like a while. And then eventually you just have to make the
mhm,
decision. Okay, I'm going to do it. So I started my own podcast. It's called Bopcast. And so what I did with that was I did it by myself for a couple episodes. And I realized, you know
mhm,
what? I want to bring people on here. I want to make this more about people. I don't want to just talk to the camera. Kind of like what you're doing too is you have to bring people on. That's what you
mhm.
have to do.
Yeah.
And the networking effect, as well as the audience, as well as value. You can only
Mhm,
provide so much value. So you bringing
mhm,
somebody else on, that's is a lot more valuable. So then I had my guest on my third episode, my friend Dan, and he actually was an investor in the stock market a few years ago when I met him.
mm,
So that was a really interesting episode, and from there I got addicted to interviewing people, and so I ended up a year ago. I started editing my first podcast for other people. I had been editing mine for a while, interviewing
mhm,
people in person a lot on my own. Got brought in to a company to do one podcast. So I did the editing, audio, video, show notes, SEO for the blog posts, booking the guests, scheduling the guests. Like I did everything. So that was kind of a great experience for me to go from my own podcast to somebody else's podcast. And since
mm,
then, I've left that company and created a company called Podcast Principles, where I
mhm,
do that just for a lot more people. So it's digital and in person. If we get there in person, I'd love to do some, but it's audio and video production. We can outsource all of your podcast needs. If there's something you don't want to do, even if even if you need a custom theme song, we do that as well. So that's kind of the short version of the trajectory of how I got to creating podcast principles and
mhm.
helping people create podcasts, which I love to do.
So you working for a corporation, and then you quit your corporation to start this, right? So how was your journey? So it looks like you're like me too. You quit the corporate life, and now you're a full-time entrepreneur now.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird to say like entrepreneur, like founder. I don't feel like
Yeah,
that. It's like definitely a
yeah.
small business. Like I don't have some multi-million-dollar business or something. But yeah, I did
Mhm,
work in corporate. I actually was in college, while I was doing that. So, but it was a lot. Obviously, it was like almost a full-time job, and then having school too to kind of juggle. But that's what happened was I applied to edit their audio. Because I saw, and it was just for some context, it was a startup marketing agency based in New York City. I'm from New Jersey, so it was kind of close. Went in for an interview to edit their podcast. Then I was brought on, as I said before, to do the whole podcast. And then I did sales, and then I learned marketing, and then I was doing all this other business stuff, and then the podcast was on the back burner. Like the whole reason I was there in the first place was to do this podcast, and it really wasn't a priority. And at that point, I actually talked to a life coach, and these are
mm,
some things that we talked about even on when I
yeah.
interviewed you too, which is a great podcast that people should check out,
Mhm,
to hear more about your story, because you're interviewing a lot of people here. But yeah, so I
mhm.
talked to a life coach, and we kind of got to the point where he was like, I don't think this aligns with what you really want to do. And
Yep.
unfortunately, I haven't talked to him since then. He was a really nice guy, but it kind of gave me the motivation to say, I think I can I'm still in college, right? So I don't really have any, obviously I have pressure, financial pressure as far as, paying
Mhm,
tuition, but I don't have, a mortgage, a home, multiple cars. I don't have all that. So I figured I can take, what I have now. I have speakers, I have headphones, I have a mic, I have a computer. Okay, that's really all I need to edit podcasts. So let me leave this corporate job, and see if I can do it myself. I took a few months kind of to build it up, and I just hit LinkedIn hard, Christine. You know how it is when you
Yeah.
hit LinkedIn every day. That's what I did.
Yep.
I just hit LinkedIn every
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
hours a day, because it was the beginning of quarantine too. So I had all this
Mhm.
time. Spring break, after spring break, we never went back to school. So every day I'm sitting there in the morning doing LinkedIn. But yeah, I
Mhm.
left back to the corporate thing. Yeah, I left that job, and who knows? Maybe I'll
Mhm.
go back to. I'm a big fan of jobs. I don't mind jobs. It just kind of, I was freelancing. I needed more people. Then that's kind
Mhm.
of how the company came about. But
Yeah. So why podcasting? Like I know I'm doing podcasts so I can like expand more, but like what's about podcasting that you love? Like I assume that you found your passion now, right, with the podcasting. So what is it about podcasting?
yeah, I think for me, I love, like, when I do a podcast, I love interviewing people. I love talking to people, asking them
Okay.
questions that they haven't been asked before. For me, because it's hard, I think my friend Mark Metry said this the other day, somebody on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
you might follow him too, about how it's hard to just message somebody to be like, hey, can I
Yeah.
ask you a few questions? That's really difficult because
Mhm.
people don't have the
Yeah, yeah.
time. But if you give
Mhm.
them if you're giving them a ton of value up front and just be like, hey, I will put you on my podcast, promote it, and you can use all the content, then you can ask them as many
Mhm.
questions as you want, right? So obviously
Ah,
in the beginning,
that's right. Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking like
Yeah.
that. I was interviewing my friends, I was interviewing people I
Yeah.
met at school, just kind of whoever, right? But then I
Okay.
got to LinkedIn and Instagram, and I'm kind of growing on Instagram a little bit. I'm kind of talking to higher level people. Some of my friends get a bunch of followers and kind of start growing there. So, interviewing them and then expanding the network. So for me,
Mhm.
I love the art of the interview and interviewing. But for other
Mm.
people, podcasts are 100 different things. There's 100 more different
Mm.
great reasons to do it. But for me, I love the art of the
Got it.
interview. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you got into podcasting, did you ever thought about monetizing it? Like how did that come about to how to monetize podcasts? Because like when people get into podcasts, they monetize through sponsorship, through I don't know. I'm not the monetizing my podcast. It's just more for me to expand my awareness. I'm not even adding like like the sponsorship because I have with Anchor and then they say, oh, you can add sponsorship, but I don't want to redirect people to other places. So yeah, so how did you figure out how to monetize through podcasting? Like all this interviewing with people. So where the idea come from and then like on what you do now and the services that you offer now.
I actually am kind of just like you. Like I don't have any sponsors for my personal podcast. I
Mm,
don't want to, I don't think it's a problem if you want to monetize it. It's all about goals, right? So a lot of
mhm,
people want to have a podcast to drive people to their business, right? So
mhm.
now
Yep.
you can't just do it for fun now. Now we have to
Yeah.
reverse engineer this podcast so
Yeah.
it drives people
Yeah.
to your business. For me, in the beginning, and even now, still, when I sit down and interview somebody and interview an artist that I really respect, somebody,
Mhm.
in the music industry or something, it's like,
Mhm.
I don't want to make money off of them bringing me views from sponsors that they had
Mhm.
know anything about, like,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but for me, it wasn't about the monetization. Honestly, after making podcasts for 3 years, I'm finally learning the monetization,
Oh.
and that's why I see, for me, it's not, there's a lot of people who are better at monetizing your podcast. For me, I do production, right? So I do your audio. Like,
Mm.
if you want to
Got
get
it.
a Zoom, I don't want to brag, but like, if you want to get a Zoom audio sounding really good, like, I know how to do that. That's just my skill, right? Video,
Mhm.
that's not my skill. Who do I have? A really talented videographer, and we can take
Got
Zoom
it.
video and make it look really good, right? So that's what I focus on. And there's other people. My friend, his name's escaping me right now. He owns a company called Cash
Mhm.
Flow Podcasting. You can guess what
Oh.
that is. It's all how to monetize your podcast. Great guy. Maybe I should intro you
Oh,
to
okay.
him. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, yeah.
He's all
Okay.
about monetization. He doesn't do he's not even on the production side. He probably does it, but for me, I am, a music head. I'm a podcast head, and I like to listen, and like, I just have an ear for it. So that's my skill. That's my
Mhm.
specialty. But kind
Mm.
of back to your question, when I was in the beginning, I didn't think about monetizing it. Now I'm talking to some sponsors that are just my friends who have companies, but
Mhm.
nothing where I'm like, I have to make $1 million off this podcast. Like, that's not.
Mm.
It'll come for sure if I wanted to, or I'll change the podcast or
Mhm.
create a different one for that reason. But
Mhm.
yeah, mine
Yeah.
personally, I wasn't trying to make any money.
Got it. So I'm just curious, like how much work is a podcast really? So for me, I don't know much about editing audio or videos. I just download the audio or like this interview, then I just kind of like cut the blank in the on the front and the back, and then just add intro and outro. So how much work do
Yeah.
you do on the audio?
Yeah, so just on the audio side, and like I know the video side for sure. I can speak on it a little bit, but the ins and outs, the details, I really don't know. But as far as the audio, so I use a
Mm-hmm.
program called Logic Pro. It's by Apple. It's basically GarageBand if you've ever used it, but it's GarageBand for professional use. And so I have that, and then that I've been working on for about 4 or 5 years. I know the program pretty well. But that wasn't cutting it for me. I couldn't do everything I wanted to do with that. So I got this other program called RX7, and what that does is it processes your audio, processes dialogue audio. So a lot of what it's called, they're called DAWs, so they're called digital audio workstations, and that's your Logic Pro, tools. It's in all of these, pretty high level music, mostly music production, but audio production softwares. I started using Logic, and then I wasn't happy with with everything. I wanted a software that was specific for dialogue, like podcast dialogue. And so now I
Mm-hmm.
have, between those two programs, I can make, I can make audio sound pretty good, because for me, like, I'm all about the quality. So if somebody wants their, for you, like, that's you don't need, like, you're just putting the audio up on Anchor
Mm-hmm.
and it's going on all the platforms, and like that's it. Like, you're good. Like, it's all
Mm-hmm.
about the content, right? When
Yeah.
somebody, for me, somebody comes to me and they say this is the type of quality I want, then that's when I come in,
Mm.
So but a
Yeah.
lot of times it really is just about the content, and a quality, the having really nice quality is just a bonus, right? But in my opinion,
Yeah.
it's mandatory, but that's just
Got it. Yeah.
I'm biased, right?
I
But
guess
yeah,
depending on how OCD you are.
yes, exactly. And now my ear is just like, if I hear one thing, when I hear a podcast that's not like EQ'd right or not compressed at all, or I'm like, oh my God, like I have to like not listen to it because it'll just bug me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll message them and be
Oh,
like, hey, let me edit this. Like, I'll show you what I can do.
got it.
But
Got it. Yeah, I should.
for me, like, the
Mhm.
outcome, just like before, because I forgot to say this, it's making it sound good on everything. So you can
Mhm.
upload audio and it sounds great on your laptop, but then you go to a phone, or you go to an iPod, or you go to a iPad, or you go to a Lenovo desktop, or you go to an HP laptop. For most of the time, it's going to sound different on all those. What I do is make them sound good on every single device
Got it.
possible.
Um, so you said on every single device. I mean, does it sound different if someone's listening from a computer, a MacBook, or iTunes, or
Mhm. Everything
oh,
compresses audio differently. So Spotify compresses differently than Apple Music, that compresses differently than
oh,
Anchor app, that compresses differently than Safari, that compresses differently than
oh,
YouTube. So that's what audio engineers do. And so that's what I do, is I make sure, and that's what you would do for
oh,
music, right? So if you listen
yeah.
to a song that's recorded in a basement, that's just kind of thrown together, which, I've done this too. I'm not
Mhm.
knocking it at all, but you can kind of
Mhm.
tell that there's reverb coming from, it's a weird reverb because it's not treated correctly, so
Mhm.
you can kind of hear that. Or then you listen to, which I bring up all the time for some reason, a Drake song, just for
Mhm.
example, right? Because everybody knows him.
Mhm. Yep.
It's obviously, you can tell the level of production that goes into that. So, most people probably
Uh.
won't hear it, but I've heard some bad ones. So I just made it kind of my mission to be the podcast audio guy, I
Mhm.
love that.
Okay. Yeah, so singers, I wonder how much like they engineer that to make them sound better than they are.
Oh, you'd be surprised what that process looks like. Yeah.
So I can make myself sound better. I can be a singer now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can auto tune, auto tune your
Like,
podcast, whatever you want. Add some pitch correction, you add some layers. I mean, as far as you want to go. It's funny.
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you got big reverb and it makes it sound like, I've seen people get creative. They do it on Zoom, but they add a little reverb, so it sounds like they're in a room. It sounds like they're in a
Oh.
hallway or something. It's just for
Okay.
example, but
So
yeah.
I'm curious to actually I'm curious to actually hear your thoughts on my podcast. So I'd love to, and then if you want, you can actually do the editing for this, and then I'll upload to my
Oh,
podcast
I
because
would
it's
love to do
interesting.
that. Yes. Oh,
Okay, yeah. Okay,
100%.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let me do this
I want to
episode.
see. Yeah, I really want to see like how you do it and what the difference is. So I assume you listen to the entire thing again because you have to edit the thing. So you listen to an entire hour, or like because I
Yeah,
know you're
so there's kind of levels to it. I mean, some people
uh
won't need every single.
Mhm.
click, like every single pen click taken out, but some people want that.
Mhm.
So, I
Mhm.
will do that. I don't have a
Mhm.
problem doing that, so
Mhm.
but yeah, Zoom and like and anything that has to process your audio is you're gonna start off. It's really hard to make bad audio sound good, but it's easier to make good audio sound great. So
Ah,
that's
okay.
the problem with like I can honestly, you might not even hear the difference. But
Mhm.
where you probably would hear the difference is in loudness. Because a lot of times,
Mm.
when you're like listening to a podcast just on your phone, no headphones, and
Yep,
you turn
yep.
it up all the way and you
Yeah.
feel like it's still not loud enough.
Yeah,
That's what I help.
exactly. I hate
Yes,
that.
that's what I help to do. So what that
Yeah.
is that's a compressor. It's also gain. So there's not proper gain on it. So what that
Mhm.
problem with that, the highest level here is the highest level that you can listen at, and here's your podcast. So you can never make that up unless you did it in the
Mhm.
production process, right? So I take
Mhm.
it to right here, so
Mhm.
that's kind of
Yeah, got it.
so as much as you turn it up, it'll never get that loud because the gain's not correct, so but that's just
Exactly,
a whole
exactly. Yeah, I
little
have heard that. I was like, the audio quality like sometimes high, then it goes low. Like it's not like consistent throughout the podcast. So
that's
it's
what a
like you
compressor
turn it
does.
loud, low,
Hmm.
low. It's like
Yep.
okay, yeah,
So a
okay, yeah. I
compressor does
mhm,
that. It takes your lows or highs, brings them down, and it takes your lows and brings them up. So, and
mhm.
then you have an equalizer, which basically rounds off the edges. So you don't get that crazy harsh sound when somebody coughs or something.
Got yep, exactly, exactly. Okay, cool. So tell me like so this podcast, so I'm the Sully wait, Bobcast, right? So that one you were not monetizing it. So now okay, so now podcast principle is all about monetize. It's a whole new podcast. So what are your episodes gonna be like? Like are you interviewing people, teaching people about podcasts? Like are you gonna do sponsorship? Like what is your business goal for that now?
That's a great question. I think I'm still trying to figure it out. For right now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really doubling down on content. My
Mm-hmm.
goal is to make 100 pieces of how-to podcast content for
Mm-hmm.
2021 and release them all.
Yeah.
As far as the podcast goes for the principles, I'm still trying to figure out. I think what I might do is do a podcaster showcase where some episodes are tips and then some episodes I bring you on to talk about your podcast. It's a 10-15 minute episode. It's like a little
Mm-hmm.
trailer for your podcast. I bring Mark
Mm-hmm.
on. I bring all these other guys, Travis Chappell, bring these guys
Mm-hmm.
on who have these podcasts just for like 10 minutes to talk about your podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
then it would basically be tips from people who do it as well as the actual, like podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
the podcasts
Oh, got it.
themselves, and kind of just
Yeah.
10 minutes of them talking about their podcast. So that's my idea right
Okay.
now. I haven't created it yet. But we'll see.
Okay. So are you gonna do sponsorship too now on this new podcast principle or not
I'm
really?
not sure. I'm
Okay.
thinking about it because
Okay.
there's some softwares that I like to use that I would love to
Mm-hmm.
suggest people to use. And so
Yep.
that might be a good symbiotic
Oh yeah,
relationship,
that's
right?
right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You can
So
do affiliate marketing.
exactly, and, like, that's not I don't that's cool,
Mm-hmm.
I it's if I can, I will, I'm not, like, trying to, just make money off people from the podcast, it's just I'm really just trying to help and make sure people
Mm-hmm.
can, learn from it, but, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that is something that I would probably, consider doing just because if I'm driving I mean, for now the amount of mics that I have sold that I should have made a commission on
Oh yeah,
is
the
ridiculous. I mean, like, where's my like this one, this mic with this Audio Technica? I'll plug it again, the ATR baby,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's probably the most versatile mic in that you can buy, and the amount probably
Yeah, yeah.
5, 6, 8, 10 of these that I've sold through Amazon that
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
don't get a commission
Yeah.
on. So yeah, I have to
Yeah,
figure
you
that out.
should have done that Amazon
Gotta do
thing, the
affiliate.
seller. Yeah,
I didn't
that's
even
gonna
realize that was possible, okay? I didn't even know. I was just, like, out there helping people, "Hey, this mic's pretty good. I've had it for 3 years, it's my most versatile
uh
mic,"
yeah,
you
I
know,
only use this mic. Like I don't even like I said I just keep it simple.
that's good, great. A
Yeah.
headset is better than nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
headsets are nice because you don't get all that background noise. That's why I love that
Hmm.
headsets, but
Yeah, exactly. Like my computer, like I hear my friend go ting ting ting. At least you don't hear that.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, they're like text messaging me. I
'Cause
was like, oh
you
crap!
get a
Like so,
big
at
mic
least.
like this one I'm using, like I'm gonna be able to show it. It's probably gonna be loud, so here, let me
So
try.
what's that? The one that you're. So those are all mic. This too.
So this is a
Oh.
Rode NT1A. This is mostly for
Uh huh.
vocals. I like it for podcasts. It does pick up a little bit of background noise. You kind of have to have
Mm.
it treated, but I have this, which is nice. So this is like a shield.
Oh, jeez.
So you put the shield on the tripod. Yeah, this gets crazy.
Ah, too.
But
That's too technical for me.
yeah, yeah, I know. This is I nerd out on this stuff, really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's good. You found your passion. That's good. So let's talk about LinkedIn. Like I know, like you said you get a lot of clients from LinkedIn and some website. You said that so to do the editing and stuff like that. So how do you get your clients on LinkedIn? So in case for people who are curious about just finding clients on LinkedIn. I have my ways, but I'm curious how what have you been doing on LinkedIn that actually got you clients?
Yeah, I think just your normal, probably what you would tell somebody too is engage.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell when you don't engage. Like I took a break from LinkedIn for a little while, and then
Yeah.
nothing
Yes.
happened, right? So then you're like, oh
Yeah. Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
like this is for
Yeah.
real. So
Yep.
definitely engaging has been great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just time, spending time on the platform and creating. I don't just limit myself to podcast style content on there. I definitely do talk about some
Mm-hmm.
life stuff. I don't
Yep.
I don't use, I use Instagram and LinkedIn, so I post different things on there on either
Mhm.
platform. But yeah, for
Mhm.
me, it's just been engaging with people and like just saying,
Mhm.
hey, if you want to get on a call, listen, it's not a sales call. Like I'm just trying to connect with people. I'm young, like I'm building my network, so that's where I'm at too. And
Mhm.
I've used my being in college. I'll write a message that says, hey, I'm a senior in college. I'm making podcasts for people. Hey, can we get on a call? I see
Mm.
you're big in this industry or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
that's what I do. Obviously it gets a little boring to keep sending people messages. So that's why my strategy is going to be doubled down on content. So,
Mhm.
um,
That
but before, yeah, just engage, connect with people, have genuine conversations like we did. And then I interviewed you on my
Mhm.
podcast. That's great too. If you
Mhm.
can have a
Yep.
podcast, interview people on there, and
Exactly.
then Christine
Yeah.
Tay has you on her LinkedIn Live, like that's great. Like that's what you can do that for yourself with other people. And all it
Yep.
was me asking you to be on my
Mhm.
podcast. So
Mhm.
I feel like a perfect example of a connection
Yeah.
that brought from LinkedIn, and we're here, however, 6 months later. So
Exactly. I love LinkedIn. I mean, this is just one of the benefits of LinkedIn. I've had so much more benefits from LinkedIn. So
this is my
I know on
first
Instagram.
LinkedIn Live, by the way. Sorry to cut you off there,
Oh
but
well, good.
thank
I'm
you for
honored.
this is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Okay. So tell on Instagram, you're pretty big though. Are you getting clients from Instagram? Like, I mean, tell us more because like I'm trying to grow on Instagram, but I'm not very good at Instagram. So I think I might have get some tips from you. So I know you have two Instagram accounts, right? So tell me like what's the difference between those and like are you getting clients from there and how you can help advise people to get clients from Instagram.
Yeah, so I have gotten more people that have worked with me from Instagram than clients. So I'll put on my
Okay.
story, my story might a few hundred people might see it. I'll put it out. Hey, I'm looking
Oh.
for a social media person, like I did
Mhm.
whatever 2 months ago. I'm looking for a
Mhm.
show notes person. I'll throw that out on my Instagram, and then four people would DM me. I'll get on calls with two of them, and then that'll be great. It's a lot for me. It's a lot of finding connections because I have a ton of artists on there because I'm an artist
Yep. Yep.
myself and I connect with artists. But as
Um.
far as other people like on Instagram, Chris, Instagram's tough. I hate Instagram, but I love it, but I hate it. Like I haven't been on it in the last like 3 weeks. And
Love
I'm
hate
losing
relationship.
followers, and I'm like, I don't even care. I'm losing followers. Like I had to like just take a break. But it's like
Yeah.
it's an amazing platform, but it's very saturated. It's hard to stand
Yeah.
out. It's hard to understand engagement. It's hard to so
Yep.
maybe so is LinkedIn, right? But Instagram's a different beast. It's just a completely different
Mhm.
thing. But I think if you want to use it to get clients, I think it's a great platform to run ads. It's a great platform for
Mhm.
stories. It's a great platform
Mhm.
to because you were saying how I have two Instagram accounts. I have two Instagram accounts and two Facebook pages, and they're both linked to each other. So the Sully Bop
Mm.
brand, which is my music, I have a Sully Bop Instagram page where
Mhm.
that's the most active one. I have the most followers on there. And then I have a Bopcast Facebook page and then a Bopcast, which is my podcast,
Mhm.
Instagram page too. And my thought behind that is there's people that like my music who don't really like, or don't, not that they don't like the podcast, but it's just they don't listen to the podcast. It's just not for them. And there's people who love
Mhm.
the podcast who don't really listen to my music, or they just like other sounds
Mm.
and other artists, right? So I wanted to create that and have the Instagram account be, even if it's a few hundred people, the few hundred people who love the podcast who are loyal listeners. So that was
Got
my
it.
thought behind it. It's a lot of work to run two Instagrams. I wouldn't suggest it. I'd say just keep it on one.
One is enough.
One is enough. But it is a
Yeah.
beast of a platform, and it is really, it can be crazy on there. But as far as
Mhm.
developing a network, it's a lot easier to do on LinkedIn, as you know.
Yep.
They don't do
Exactly.
Instagram's not that way. It's not Instagram is not you engage with people and you get engagement back. That's not how it works.
Yep. Yep.
So
No.
that's so when you go from one to the other, like when I went from Instagram to
Yeah.
LinkedIn, I was getting like 3,000 views on a random LinkedIn post about something random. And
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
never happen on Instagram. That doesn't
Yep. Yep.
happen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to have Gary in my video because I met him to get thousands of views on an Instagram video, without running ads on it. So
Yep, yep, got it, got it. Okay, so for people who wants to start podcasting and like they're like, oh, how should I start? Because like when before I start podcasting, I was like, oh, is it that difficult? Whatever. And I think you told me about Anchor. Someone told me about Anchor. So after I did, it was actually quite simple. You just upload it and then like it just get published everywhere. So what's advice would you tell someone who wants to start podcasting and they're like kind of freaking out, like, oh, what should I do? Whatever. So what advice would you tell them?
great question. I want people to know that they can get a podcast on Spotify in about 2 hours. Anybody can use an Anchor. Anchor gets it on Spotify real quick, in my experience. This is
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
problem with Anchor, just real quick before I go into how to make a podcast, but
Hmm.
or how to get started. Anchor, in their terms of service, in their agreement,
Hmm.
they actually own your content. So it's not like they're going to go and use your content, but technically you give ownership away to them. So that's why I don't use Anchor anymore, just as a little aside. It's an amazing platform, but when something's free,
Hmm.
you know that they're taking something from you. We know this from
Okay.
Facebook, right?
Yeah.
All that. So
Yep.
still a
Yep.
great platform. I still have my
Yeah.
old episodes on there. I wouldn't knock it if it's free. So use it. I use a different one now, but as far as starting a podcast, what I recommend to people, if you can record at least 10 episodes before you start, I would do
Got it.
that. What you want to do
Okay.
is write down your kind of main questions. Why am I doing this? Just the why is what you would do with your business. Like for you, it would be,
Yep.
I want to empower people to take control of their
Mhm.
financial success.
Mhm.
Like, so what's the why of the podcast?
Mhm.
What are you getting out of it? So writing down the things actually in a notebook of like, what do I think this is going to do for me? What are my
Mhm.
guests getting out of it? If I'm having guests, what are they getting out of it? Am I just promoting them? Do I just want their people to see me? What do I want out of the guests? And then what are the listeners getting out of it?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
there's a lot of different people involved in this. And it's, even if you make it for you, it's not for you, it's for
Mhm.
the people. It's like when you throw a party. When you have a party, you spend
Mhm.
all the money and you get to have a good time, but you're really doing the party. You have to clean up at the end. Like you're doing all
Mhm.
the editing and everything for the guest, really, and for the
Mhm.
listeners. So you have to be really, it's pretty selfless, kind of to make a podcast just as far as the time goes. But yeah,
Mhm.
write those things down, write them out real simple. Just, you don't have to get too complicated. Why am I doing
Mhm.
this? What's my goal? Definitely what's my goal. So that's like 5 questions right there. Write
Yep.
them all
Yep.
out and you'll have a great understanding and something to refer back, because you want to have an elevator pitch for your podcast, just like a business.
Mhm.
What do you do with
Yep.
your podcast? Oh, I interview young people to help them because college age kids need inspiration to, you know,
Mhm.
be free and do what they want to do, right? Bang,
Yep.
elevator pitch, done.
Yep.
So yeah, those questions. And yeah, something like Anchor. I mean, you can literally record, upload, you can do they even let you do a logo on there. I mean, you
Oh,
can't, it
okay.
doesn't get easier
Uh-huh.
than that or better than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yep.
very
Awesome. No,
simple,
that's
and start there with those questions. I think you'll be good.
yep. Yep. Okay. Start like that, and then like if you want to get to the next level, then they'll just reach out to you. So Ryan.
Mm.
So thank you so much for this. This is really helpful. So like, when should people come to you, and how can people find you?
So
course, the
I would
LinkedIn
suggest
world.
normally, yeah, and thank you so much for having me. This is amazing. I
Hmm.
love LinkedIn Live. I'm gonna once I get my LinkedIn going. I've been very active on there now, so I'm gonna apply for LinkedIn Live eventually. But I
Hmm.
would suggest people, if you are even thinking about starting a podcast, even if you're not sure if you want to outsource it or not, if you don't want,
Hmm.
if you want somebody to edit the audio or not, like we do those really complex edits. We also do very simple
Hmm.
edits like what you do. Some people don't even have the
Hmm.
time to put their music on the beginning and the end or
Hmm.
something. We
Yep,
do
yep,
that too.
yeah.
It's all, podcast production and show notes, even posting
Hmm.
it to social media, we do that too. So I would suggest book a call with me. It's calendly.com/Ryan R Sullivan/connect.
Mm.
It's also in my LinkedIn bio. So the
Okay.
LinkedIn is
Yep.
linkedin.com/Sullybop.
Okay.
And then the
Hmm.
Instagram is just Sullybop, or you can Google Sullybop
Hmm.
and all
Hmm.
my stuff will come up there. But yeah, book a call with
Hmm.
me. Let's do it. Let's talk. Even if you don't, I'll help you out, deliver some value. Let's talk podcast. Let's do it. I'm all about
Hmm.
connecting with people in general too. So add me on LinkedIn, add me on Instagram. Let's do that.
Yeah, I'll tag you as well after this because I for some reason I can't tag you beforehand. So I'll tag you on like the LinkedIn whatever. So yes, thank you,
Awesome.
Ryan. I really appreciate this. And then like I'll send this audio to you. So let's see
Oh yeah.
the magic
Let
you
me
can
see
do.
if
And
I
then
can
like
cook some up there. Let me see if I can
yeah,
get
yeah,
a
yeah.
little intro, run it through the program, see if I can get the audio good on some iPhone stuff for people. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Christine, so much for doing
Yeah.
this. I really appreciate it. This was a great time.
Okay, Ryan. Okay, talk to you later. Okay, bye bye.
I'll talk to you later. I'll see you.